A screaming alien girl. Lyra ran. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stumbled through the dark jungle. The air was thick, damp, and smelled like rotting leaves. Strange creatures howled in the distance. The trees above twisted like reaching claws, blocking the light of the twin moons. She clutched her injured leg, gasping in pain. The crash had broken something. She knew it. Every step sent fire through her bones, but she could not stop. Something was chasing her. She could hear it behind her, the heavy thud of giant footsteps, the snap of branches, the deep guttural growl of a predator that had caught her scent. Lyra whimpered. She was a Solarian daughter of the great house Athos. She was supposed to be strong. But right now, she was just a scared girl, lost and alone on a dangerous planet. Then, she made a mistake. Her foot caught on a root, and she fell hard. Pain exploded through her leg as she crashed onto the forest floor. She bit her lip to stop from screaming, but the creature behind her had already heard. It roared, a deep, bone-rattling sound that made her blood turn cold. Lyra turned her head, eyes wide with terror. The creature stepped into the moonlight. It was massive, at least 4 meters tall, with black scales, 6 glowing red eyes, and claws sharp enough to slice through metal. Saliva dripped from its fanged mouth as it let out another low growl. She tried to move, but her leg refused. This was it. She was going to die here. The beast crouched, muscles tensing. It was ready to pounce. Lyra closed her eyes. Then, a massive hand grabbed her and yanked her away. She gasped as she was lifted off the ground like she weighed nothing. The world spun, the wind rushing past her face. When she opened her eyes again, she was in the arms of something even bigger than the monster. A human. Her first instinct was to scream. She had seen humans before, weak, thin creatures with soft skin. But this one was huge. The man was at least 7 feet tall, built like a war machine. His arms were thick with muscle, his clothes torn and dirty. His short brown hair was messy, and his face was covered in scars. His eyes, a deep shade of blue, studied her for only a second before he turned back toward the beast. Lyra's scream caught in her throat. What was he doing? The human stepped toward the monster. "You picked the wrong prey, buddy," the man muttered. The beast roared and lunged. The human did not run. He charged. Lyra barely had time to process what she was seeing. The human slammed into the creature with full force, tackling it like it was nothing. The ground shook. The beast screeched, clawing at the man's back. Blood sprayed, but he didn't stop. He grabbed the monster's jaw, his muscles flexing as he held it open. Lyra's mouth fell open in shock. Humans weren't supposed to be this strong. With a grunt, the human twisted the creature's head, and the beast collapsed, dead. Silence filled the jungle. Lyra stared in horror, in awe. The human exhaled and wiped blood from his face. Then, as if nothing had happened, he turned back to her. "Legs broken?" he asked casually. Lyra blinked. She had just watched this man kill a monster with his bare hands, and now he was acting like they were having a normal conversation. I think so," she stammered. The human crouched beside her, gripping her leg. His hands were rough, calloused. Lyra yelped. Don't touch it, you brute." He ignored her. "It's dislocated," he muttered. "I can fix it." Lyra's breath hitched. Fix it? What did that mean? Before she could ask, he grabbed her leg, and snap. Pain. Blinding, burning pain. Lyra screamed. She kicked at him, tears filling her eyes. You monster. You brute. You just broke my leg more." The human rolled his eyes. "Calm down, princess. It's back in place." Lyra gasped, panting. She expected more pain, but it was fading. She wiggled her foot. It hurt, but not as much as before. She stared at him in disbelief. You actually fixed it." The human smirked. Told ya. Lyra glared at him. She didn't like how smug he looked. What's your name, brute? She asked, still scowling. The man grinned. Logan. He stood up and offered her a hand. Lyra hesitated but finally took it. His grip was strong but surprisingly gentle as he helped her up. Come on, Logan said, glancing at the dark jungle. We should get moving before more of those things show up. Lyra swallowed hard. She wasn't sure if she trusted this human. But one thing was clear. He was her best chance at surviving this planet. And for now, that was enough. The brute and the broken bone. Lyra's leg still ached, but the pain was no longer unbearable. She stood shakily, gripping the human's rough hand for balance. Logan, as he called himself, watched her carefully, his blue eyes sharp, measuring. The jungle around them was eerily silent. Only the occasional rustling of leaves hinted at life in the shadows. The air was humid, thick with the scent of wet earth and strange, alien flowers. Lyra exhaled sharply and pulled her hand away. You could have warned me before snapping my leg back into place. Brute. Logan smirked. I did. She scowled. That was not a warning. He shrugged, wiping some blood from his arm. It wasn't his. At least, not all of it. The massive beast he had fought lay limp a few feet away, its thick skull cracked open like a fruit. Lyra still couldn't believe it. No species in the known galaxy could punch through bone like that. Not even the war-hardened Drakthar, whose warriors trained from birth to kill. But this human had done it with terrifying ease. What exactly are you? Lyra muttered, crossing her arms. Logan raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She gestured at the dead beast. That. No human should be able to fight like that. You don't have natural armor. No claws. No energy shielding. You should be dead. Logan chuckled. Well, you're not the first alien to underestimate humans. Lyra didn't like that answer. She was a Xelarian, the daughter of a noble house. Her people had been part of the Galactic Union for centuries. She had studied countless species, including humans. They were weak, or at least they were supposed to be. Soft-skinned, fragile, good at engineering, yes. Good at adapting, sure. But physically, they were inferior to most advanced species. And yet, Logan stood there, alive, without a single weapon. Lyra narrowed her eyes. I don't believe you. Logan just grinned. That's fine. Now, can you walk? Lyra hesitated before testing her leg. There was still pain, but it was dull compared to before. She could move. Her gaze flickered back to Logan. How did you learn to fix bones like that? He shrugged. You break enough of your own. You learn how to fix them. Lyra frowned. That's not normal. Logan smirked. Neither is getting chased by six-eyed monsters, but here we are. Lyra sighed. She didn't have time to argue. She needed to get back to her ship, or what was left of it. She turned to Logan. I have to find my distress beacon. It's the only way to contact my people. Logan crossed his arms. Where is it? Lyra hesitated. She remembered ejecting from her ship when it was spiraling out of control. The distress beacon was in the emergency kit, which had landed somewhere in this jungle. She swallowed. Not far, I think. Logan sighed. Of course, you don't know. Lyra huffed. I was busy, not dying. Logan chuckled, then glanced at the sky. All right, let's go. But stay close. This place isn't safe. Lyra had no choice but to follow. A jungle full of nightmares. The deeper they moved into the jungle, the worse the air felt. It was thick, almost suffocating. Strange, bioluminescent plants glowed in the darkness, their colors shifting whenever something moved nearby. The trees were massive, their trunks twisted in unnatural ways. The ground was uneven, covered in strange roots and patches of damp moss. Lyra could hear something breathing nearby. She stiffened. Logan. I hear it, he said, his voice low. She looked around, trying to pinpoint the sound. Then, suddenly, movement. A dark shadow darted between the trees. Then another. And another. Lyra felt a chill crawl up her spine. We're being watched. Logan's body tensed. His hands curled into fists. Yeah, I know. Lyra swallowed hard. She wasn't defenseless. Her kind had enhanced reflexes, faster than most species, but she was injured and unarmed. The growling began. It was different from before. Not the deep, guttural roar of the beast Logan had killed, but something more intelligent. A low, rhythmic sound, as if the creatures were speaking to each other. Lyra's blood ran cold. Those aren't animals, she whispered. Logan nodded grimly. No, they're hunting us. Lyra's mind raced. Who, or what, was stalking them? Then, out of the darkness, they appeared. A group of tall, armored figures stepped into the faint moonlight. Their eyes glowed red, their faces hidden behind metallic masks. Lyra's breath hitched. She recognized them instantly. Raiders. Her pulse pounded. Raiders were worse than monsters. They didn't just kill. They enslaved, tortured, and sold their victims to the highest bidder. The leader stepped forward, his voice distorted through his mask. Well, what do we have here? Lyra clenched her fists. This was bad. She turned slightly, looking at Logan. But Logan? He was smiling. A slow, confident grin spread across his face as he cracked his knuckles. Lyra's stomach twisted. Why was he smiling? The raider leader laughed. Give us the girl, human. Walk away, and we'll let you live. Logan tilted his head. You think you're the first to threaten me? The leader chuckled. You don't stand a chance. There are 5 of us, and 1 of you. Lyra's breath hitched. 5 raiders, armed, dangerous. Logan, unarmed, outnumbered. But the human only chuckled. 5. That's it. Lyra barely had time to react before Logan moved. 1 second, he was standing still. The next, he was charging straight at the raiders. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. What kind of human was this? The jungle nightmare. The moment Logan moved, the jungle became a battlefield. Lyra barely had time to process what was happening. 1 second, Logan was standing beside her. The next, he was charging straight at the raiders with nothing but his fists. The leader of the raiders barked a command in their guttural language. The others reacted instantly, raising their weapons, plasma blades igniting, energy rifles humming to life. Lyra's breath caught. He's going to get himself killed. The leader sneered. Foolish human. He fired. The blast tore through the air, aimed directly at Logan's chest. Lyra flinched, but Logan didn't stop. Instead, he twisted his body at the last possible second, the energy shot barely missing his ribs. Too fast, too precise. Then, before the leader could fire again, Logan was in his face. The first punch landed with a sickening crack. The raider's helmet caved in, metal bending under the sheer force of the impact. The leader crumpled, unconscious before he even hit the ground. The remaining raiders hesitated. That was their mistake. Logan didn't. He grabbed the nearest raider by the arm and yanked, hard. A sharp, wet pop echoed through the jungle as the raider's arm dislocated from its socket. The alien screamed, collapsing to his knees. The others reacted, slashing at Logan with plasma blades. Too slow. Logan ducked, then drove his knee into one raider's stomach. The alien flew back several feet, slamming into a tree. The last raider, bigger than the others, with dark, scaled skin, roared in rage and charged. His blade gleamed in the dim moonlight as he lunged for Logan's throat. For the first time, Lyra thought Logan was in trouble. The blade was too close. But then, Logan caught it. With his bare hand, Lyra's mind reeled. That's impossible. The plasma blade hissed against Logan's palm. Any other species would have been burned to the bone. But Logan? He just gritted his teeth and tightened his grip. The raider's eyes widened in pure terror. Logan ripped the blade away. Then, with one brutal motion, he slammed his forehead into the raider's face, a deafening crunch of broken bone. The last raider crumpled. Silence. Lyra's chest heaved as she tried to process what she had just seen. 5 trained raiders, armed, dangerous, dead or unconscious in less than a minute. And Logan? He stood there, breathing hard, blood dripping from his knuckles. Then he wiped his face and turned back to her, as if this had been nothing more than a casual workout. Lyra swallowed. Hard. What kind of monster is he? A question of strength. Lyra took an uneasy step forward. You just took down 5 raiders. Alone. Logan flexed his fingers. Yeah. She narrowed her eyes. How? He gave her a lopsided grin. I work out. Lyra's hands curled into fists. That's not an answer, brute. Logan just chuckled. It's the only one you're getting. Lyra wanted to argue, but she had no explanation. No species could fight like that. No species should be able to move like that. She had seen trained warriors before, fighters enhanced with cybernetics, energy shields, and advanced combat training. But Logan, he had none of that. Just raw strength, speed, precision, and it scared her. Come on, Logan said, nudging one of the unconscious raiders with his boot. We should go before more show up. Lyra hesitated. Wait, shouldn't we? Take their weapons. Logan shook his head. I don't need him. Lyra gaped at him. He doesn't need weapons. She had always thought of humans as weak, fragile creatures. But standing here, watching Logan wipe out an entire raiding squad with his bare hands, she wasn't so sure anymore. The journey continues. They left the clearing behind, moving deeper into the jungle. Lyra's distress beacon had to be nearby. If she could find it, she could send out a signal. Her people would come for her, and she could finally leave this nightmare planet behind. But as she followed Logan through the dense vegetation, a thought nagged at her mind. She had studied countless species across the galaxy. She had memorized their weaknesses, their strengths. Yet somehow, humans were not what she had expected. And Logan was something else entirely. For the first time, Lyra wondered, had the galaxy underestimated humans? More than just a brute. Lyra followed Logan through the dense jungle, her mind racing with everything she had just witnessed. The way he had destroyed 5 armed raiders with nothing but his fists. The way he had caught a plasma blade with his bare hand. The way he had acted like it was all completely normal. None of it made sense. Humans were supposed to be weak. They weren't supposed to outrun plasma fire, crush skulls with a single punch, or shrug off injuries like they were nothing. Yet Logan had done all of that, and he hadn't even broken a sweat. Lyra limped slightly as she tried to keep up with him, her injured legs still sore. The jungle was eerily silent now, as if the creatures lurking in the shadows were afraid to come near. She wasn't sure if that comforted her or terrified her more. Finally, she couldn't stay quiet any longer. She quickened her steps until she was walking beside him. All right, brute, she said, crossing her arms. Tell me the truth. Logan raised an eyebrow. About what? Lyra gestured at him. About you. You just fought off 5 raiders without a weapon. You should be dead. You should be injured. But here you are, acting like it was just another day. So, what are you? Logan smirked. Human. Lyra scowled. Humans don't fight like that. He shrugged. Most don't. She narrowed her eyes. He was hiding something. She needed to know more. The cave. After an hour of walking, Logan suddenly stopped. We'll rest here, he said, motioning toward a cave hidden behind thick vines. Lyra hesitated. The entrance was dark, the inside impossible to see. You sure it's safe? Logan smirked. Not really. Lyra groaned. You are the worst. Still, she followed him inside. The cave was surprisingly large, with smooth stone walls and a high ceiling. Logan tossed some wood into a pile and, to her shock, lit a fire with his bare hands. Lyra's jaw dropped. What? How? Logan chuckled. It's called a lighter, princess. He held up a small metal device. Lyra glared at him. I hate you. He just grinned. The fire crackled, casting long shadows along the cave walls. Lyra sank down against a rock, rubbing her sore leg. It still ached, but Logan had set the bone perfectly. She studied him as he sat across from her, casually sharpening a makeshift spear with a knife. His movements were steady, precise. Too precise. I've seen trained warriors fight, she said suddenly. Even the best aren't as fast as you. Logan didn't look up. You watch a lot of fights, huh? Lyra ignored the question. You're stronger than you should be. Thanks. That wasn't a compliment. Logan smirked. Sure sounded like one. Lyra growled in frustration. Are you enhanced? Logan's expression didn't change, but she noticed the way his grip on the knife tightened. Nope, he said finally. All natural. Lyra didn't believe him. Impossible. Logan shrugged. Not my problem if you don't believe it. She clenched her fists. You're hiding something. Logan finally looked at her, his blue eyes calm but unreadable. And why does it matter so much to you? Lyra opened her mouth, then hesitated. Why did it matter? Was it just curiosity, or was it something else? For as long as she could remember, the galaxy had always viewed humans as lesser beings, useful for trade, for technology, for their ability to adapt, but never for their physical strength. Humans were supposed to be weak. But if Logan was proof that wasn't true, then what else had the galaxy gotten wrong? She looked at him again, really looked at him. Logan had no armor, no weapons, no cybernetic enhancements, just raw, terrifying strength. She had spent her whole life believing humans were fragile. But now she wasn't sure anymore. A dangerous truth. Lyra exhaled. Humans aren't supposed to be this strong. Logan leaned back against the cave wall. That's what they say, huh? She studied him carefully. So, why are you? He tapped his fingers on his knee. Let me ask you something, princess. How much do you know about humans? Lyra frowned. A lot. I studied galactic biology. I know that humans are physically weaker than most advanced species. You have no natural armor, no claws, no enhanced muscles. Logan smirked. And yet, here I am. Lyra hesitated. That's what I don't understand. Logan tossed his knife aside. Let me tell you something about humans, Lyra. We weren't born into strength like some species. We weren't given natural weapons or indestructible skin. He leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. We had to earn our strength. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. In our history, Logan continued, we were never the biggest, never the fastest. But we were the most stubborn. Lyra swallowed hard. What do you mean? Logan smiled, but there was no humor in it. I mean, when something tried to kill us, we didn't just run. We fought. We adapted. We learned how to break things that were bigger than us. And over thousands of years, we became very, very good at it. Lyra was speechless. She had never heard a human explain it like that before. Most species evolved to survive. But humans, they evolved to fight. And Logan was living proof. A shift in perspective. Lyra wasn't sure how long they sat in silence after that. Her entire worldview was shifting. Everything she had believed about humans was wrong. She looked at Logan again. This time, she didn't see a brute. She saw a survivor, a warrior, a species the galaxy had completely underestimated. And for the first time in her life, Lyra wondered, had the Galactic Union made a terrible mistake? The real monsters, The jungle was no longer silent. Something was watching them. Lyra felt it before she heard it. The eerie sensation of being hunted. It slithered through her bones, made her skin prickle. The shadows outside the cave seemed too dark, too deep. The fire crackled weakly, its flickering light barely holding back the overwhelming blackness. Logan sat by the entrance, sharpening his knife. His eyes flicked toward the jungle, calm but alert. He felt it too. Lyra swallowed hard. Something's out there. Logan didn't look at her. Yeah. A cold shiver ran down her spine. What is it? Logan exhaled slowly, then stood up. He stretched his arms, rolling his shoulders, before finally answering. Trouble. Then the whispers started. The shadow in the jungle. Lyra froze. It wasn't the sound of animals growling. It wasn't the wind moving through the trees. It was whispers. Low, hissing, words she couldn't quite understand, spoken in a language that made her stomach twist. She stepped closer to Logan, her pulse hammering in her ears. That's not normal. Logan's grip tightened around his knife. No, it's not. The whispers grew louder. Then, movement. Shapes darted between the trees. Not one. Many. Lyra's breath caught. More raiders. Logan's jaw clenched. Worse. Something stepped into the moonlight. Lyra's stomach dropped. It was tall, unnaturally thin, its body covered in black chitinous plates. Its limbs were too long, too sharp, ending in blade-like claws. Its face was nothing but a smooth, eyeless mask, with a vertical slit where a mouth should be. Lyra knew what this was. Her entire body went rigid with terror. A nixan. No, not just one. A whole pack. The creatures shifted, their clawed feet scraping against the jungle floor. Their whispers were inside her mind now. Lyra wanted to scream. Nixians didn't just kill. They invaded minds. They crawled into thoughts, breaking their prey from the inside out before ripping them apart. They were apex predators. They could rip through entire platoons of soldiers like they were nothing. And there were 7 of them. Lyra took a shaky step back. We can't fight them. Logan didn't move. You can't. I can. Lyra's head snapped toward him. He wasn't scared. In fact, he was smiling. Lyra's voice shook. Logan, this isn't like the raiders. These things err. I know what they are, Logan interrupted. His fingers flexed around the knife. And I've killed them before. Lyra's mind reeled. Fats. Impossible. Logan didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward. Toward the Nixians. Lyra grabbed his arm. You can't be serious. They're too fast, too strong. Logan glanced at her, his expression unreadable. You ever wonder why they whisper? Lyra blinked. What? Logan smirked. They whisper because they're afraid of being heard. Then he moved. The human monster. It happened in a blur. One moment, Logan was standing still. The next, he was charging. Straight at the Nixians. Lyra's breath hitched. He's insane. The first Nixian screeched, lunging at Logan with its bladed claws. Logan dodged, not just sidestepping, moving faster than something that big had any right to move. The Nixian's attack missed by inches, its claws slicing through air. Logan countered instantly. His fist smashed into the creature's torso, a sickening crunch of shattered exoskeleton. The Nixian screeched in agony. The others rushed in, their movements too fast for the eye to follow. Lyra's stomach twisted. He can't fight them all. Logan caught another Nixian by the throat. With one hand, the creature shrieked, thrashing wildly. Logan squeezed. Crack. The Nixian went limp. Lyra's breath stopped. What kind of human does that? The remaining 5 Nixians hesitated. Lyra realized something horrifying. They were afraid. Afraid of him. Logan exhaled, rolling his neck. Come on. Don't stop now. The nixians hissed, then charged all at once. But Logan was already moving. One step forward, a knee strike, another crunch of breaking keten, a sidestep, a knife to the throat, black blood sprayed, a brutal elbow, a skull caved in. One of the creatures managed to slash him, its claw ripping through his shoulder. Lyra gasped, "Logan." But Logan didn't slow down. He grabbed the nixian by its arm. Then, with pure brute strength, he ripped the limb clean off. The creature screamed. Lyra felt sick. Logan's arm was bleeding, but he didn't even seem to care. He turned to the last remaining nixian. The creature took one step back, then another. It realized something. It wasn't hunting him. He was hunting them. Logan cracked his knuckles. "Go." The nixian hesitated for one last second. Then it ran. Logan exhaled, shaking black blood off his hands. Then he turned back to Lyra. She stared at him. She had thought the nixians were the real monsters in this jungle. She wasn't so sure anymore. "What are you?" Logan walked back into the cave, tearing off a piece of fabric from his already ruined shirt to wrap his bleeding shoulder. Lyra was still staring at him. "You're not human," she whispered. Logan raised an eyebrow. "That's so." She took a step toward him. "No human fights like that." Logan tied the fabric tight around his wound. "Maybe you just haven't met the right humans." Lyra shook her head. "No, I've studied your species. I know what you're capable of." Logan smirked. "Clearly, you don't." Lyra clenched her fists. "That's what scares me." For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of the monsters in the dark. She was afraid of the one standing right in front of her. And for the first time in her life, she understood why the galaxy feared humans. The human myth. The cave was silent except for the crackling fire. Lyra sat stiffly, her eyes locked onto Logan as he calmly wrapped his injured shoulder. The fabric of his torn shirt darkened with blood, but he didn't flinch. He didn't wince. It was unnatural. No species should be able to fight like that. No species should tear through nixians, one of the most feared creatures in the galaxy, with bare hands. Lyra had spent her life studying different civilizations, their strengths, their weaknesses. She had seen elite warriors, Trackthar berserkers, Silurian assassins, Meccan cyber soldiers. None of them had ever fought like Logan. Not with that raw brutality. Not with that relentless precision. Not with that terrifying ease. Lyra swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you?" Logan smirked, flexing his fingers. "I told you. Human." Lyra shook her head. "No, that's not normal. You're not normal." Logan leaned back against the cave wall, tilting his head. "What do you think humans are, princess?" Lyra inhaled sharply. "Weak, physically inferior to most advanced species. You survive through technology and alliances. You're adaptable, but you're not strong." Logan chuckled. "That what your textbooks tell you?" Lyra's fingers curled into fists. "That's what the entire galaxy knows." Logan raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, and who wrote those books?" Lyra hesitated. Logan smirked. "You ever hear of the human myth?" Lyra frowned. "What?" Logan exhaled, stretching his arms. "Sit tight, princess. Let me tell you a story. A forgotten history. The galaxy sees humans as weak," Logan said, staring into the fire. "But that's because we let them." Lyra's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Logan's voice was calm, almost casual. "You think humans survived on Earth by being weak, by relying on tech. No." His blue eyes flicked to her, sharp as a blade. "We survived because we were the most dangerous things on that planet." Lyra's breath caught. "Earth wasn't kind to us," Logan continued. "No perfect climates. No natural armor. No built-in weapons. We weren't the biggest, fastest, or strongest. Everything wanted to kill us." His fingers tightened around the fabric on his wound. So we adapted. We learned. We became the best killers in the galaxy. Lyra felt her pulse quicken. That's not true. Logan chuckled darkly. Isn't it? He leaned forward. How many alien species fear the dark? Lyra stiffened. Most. Logan nodded. Humans? We hunted in it. Lyra's skin went cold. Our ancestors didn't have claws, Logan continued. No fangs, no exoskeletons, but they had something else. Endurance. He held up his hands. See these. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. These aren't weapons. But you know what they are. Lyra swallowed. What? Logan smiled. Tools. Humans didn't need natural weapons. We made our own. Spears, knives, bows. We didn't need claws. We built traps. We didn't need to outrun our prey. We just outlasted it. Lyra shuddered. And we kept getting better at it. Logan said, his voice low. We learned how to fight things bigger than us. How to kill things stronger than us. He flexed his fingers. And somewhere along the way, we stopped being prey. We became the monsters. Lyra's mind was spinning. The textbooks had never mentioned this. No historical records ever described humans like this. And yet, she had just watched Logan fight. She had seen him tear through Nixians like they were nothing. What if the textbooks were wrong? She whispered, Why? Why doesn't the galaxy know this? Logan smirked. Because we don't let them. Lyra's stomach twisted. What? Logan leaned back. Humans have a saying, Princess. Never let them see you coming. His smirk faded. The galaxy underestimates us because we want them to. Lyra felt a chill crawl down her spine. We learned early on, Logan continued, that power attracts enemies. If the Union thought humans were a threat, they'd wipe us out. So we let them think we were harmless. We played the role of the smart, fragile species. We let the galaxy believe what it wanted. Lyra shook her head. That's insane. Logan shrugged. Maybe. But it worked. Lyra couldn't breathe. You're telling me humans have been hiding their strength. Logan grinned. Now you're getting it. Lyra's mind was racing. It made too much sense. The humans who joined the Galactic Union always played support roles. Engineers, diplomats, traders. The ones in the military specialized in tactics and technology. But now that she thought about it, how many humans were really on the front lines? How many were warriors? And how many of them were hiding in plain sight? Lyra swallowed. Then, what are you? Logan's grin faded. He stood up, rolling his shoulder. His wound had already stopped bleeding. He grabbed his knife, sliding it back into its sheath. Then, he looked down at her. I'm the thing the galaxy pretends doesn't exist. Lyra exhaled shakily. Logan turned toward the jungle, his back to her. Then, in a voice so quiet she almost didn't hear it, he said, I'm a reminder. A reminder of what? Lyra wasn't sure. But for the first time in her life, she understood why the galaxy feared humans. And she wasn't sure if that fear was enough. Not a brute. A friend. The jungle was waking up. Distant howls echoed through the trees, followed by the rustling of unseen creatures moving in the dark. The fire in the cave had burned down to embers, casting a dim orange glow over the damp stone walls. Lyra had barely slept. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, her mind racing. She had always thought she understood the universe, how civilizations worked, how species fit into their proper places. Humans were weak. The Illyrians were strong. The Drakthar were warriors. The Mikan were machines. The Nixians were nightmares. But now she realized everything she had been taught was a lie. She had seen it with her own eyes. Logan, just one human, had survived in this jungle, unarmed, alone, against raiders and Nixians. He had killed them, not with technology, not with enhancements, with his hands. And worst of all, he had enjoyed it. Lyra swallowed hard, glancing at Logan. He was leaning against the cave wall, arms crossed, eyes closed. He looked completely relaxed, as if nothing had happened, like fighting nixans was just another chore. She hated how calm he was. She hated how strong he was.